Welcome to the Conclave.
We ready to piss people off?
Yes, always.
Because we're definitely gonna piss people off.
Check your pockets. They didn't steal our shit. I bought this from the bakery down the street because I had to go in and order a cake today. I bought it because they didn't steal our shit.
You know what? We're going to keep that as the intro. So, guys, welcome and thank you for rejoining us here at The.Conclave.Podcast. So, we are talking about a very controversial topic. This is one that's probably going to at best annoy most of you, and expectedly piss off a bunch of you. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
We have entitled the episode, Check Your Pockets, They Stole Our Shit. Did they? We are talking about the Christian chef theft of pagan holidays.
The Christian chef?
The Christian chef. See, now we may have to just...
Now you're just hungry.
Now we're just going to have to cut that. And...
No, you're not. You're going to keep going.
We're going to keep it going. Okay. That's fine. She's already started eating the cross, so we can't reshow it.
Yep.
And that's why we're not going to cut that part. So, you're welcome. Before we really kind of get into it, there's a few housekeeping things. First off, I do really want to thank all of you who are listening / watching. The viewership is steadily growing. Small, but steadily growing, which is absolutely fantastic on our part to see. You take on things like this not knowing if people are going to want to listen or even give a crap. So thank you guys so much for being a part of the initial crowd to it all. Hopefully it grows exponentially. We do have other things planned in the future, as you've hopefully seen, at least on those who are on YouTube. We started doing shorts. We're going to keep doing that, as well as eventually break into TikTok once I have a little room to breathe.
We've had like 2 appliance deliveries this week. It's just...
Yeah, so typically when we record at least 5 days before launch. We are launching, so this is
recording on Saturday to launch on Sunday this week because life.
Yep. Which is going to mean I'm probably going to be up until like 3 o'clock in the morning getting things edited and put together. But
it sounds like a whole lot of his problem.
This is a whole lot of me problem. I'm probably going to have a few drinks while I do it. So if things are a little weird and wonky, sorry guys, life.
Yeah. Life happens even to podcasters.
Oh, yeah. Especially in the very beginning of it when you have to balance real life and...
We don't have a staff to run the store, much less anything else.
Not with a podcast. All right. So hopefully you guys have found the last 2 weeks very educational and have been able to start finding ways to implement it all yourself, because cleansing, protecting, and warding are some of the most important things in the metaphysical, pagan, witchy
spiritual
world.
Hygiene is just as important as regular hygiene.
Yep. So hopefully you guys found a lot of, at least little nuggets of greatness in it. Or no, not greatness, but nuggets of things you can use.
Yeah.
And then even if we piss you off today, please come back, because the next episode is another one we think is very, very important. So that's why I'm going to tease it now. It's going to be called The Quietest Neighbors Ever, because we're going to talk graveyard etiquette. Right. So in a lot of rituals and a lot of spell workings, you hear stuff like, oh, we need graveyard dirt, or we need X, Y, and Z. There's a proper etiquette, even just to entering a cemetery in our world, right? And that's what we're going to be going over a lot of. And, we'll even touch into how to properly clean a headstone, so that, if you feel like doing a little service to the inhabitants of the graveyard, you'll be able to do so. So bear with us on this one. And, I'm even going to give another little warning to it. If you are very easily pissed off and you are a person that just is extremely in touch with your feelings, maybe skip this one. Maybe.
Yeah, if you cannot listen to facts over your feelings easily, Yeah, just
This episode's not for you.
this episode is not for
Right.
you.
And that's okay. It's okay if that's who you are, being your general self,
Be yourself.
Be-
That's
yeah.
fine. We're just warning you that
Yeah.
this one is going to piss a lot of the neo-pagans off because they've been hearing about all of this shit that people stole from the pagans every holiday, and it's getting really, and I'm breaking the F-bomb here. It's really fucking old. All right, guys? Like, it's not that fucking deep.
So most people would have thought that I was the overly passionate one on this. What I'm finding is it's really her. The stance we are taking on all of this is historical. Okay, we're gonna like Jess just said, we're using facts, we're using history, we're using dates. Okay, that is where this is coming from. We are not approaching it with necessarily a pro-Christian light, but we're not approaching it with an anti-Christian light either.
We're also giving you guys permission to celebrate these holidays with your family however
Heck
you
yeah.
normally celebrate them. Like, it's okay to just fucking want to do Christmas.
Yeah.
Because you like the food, you like hanging out with your parents, you like hanging out with your siblings. That's okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't have, you're not persecuted if you just want to hang out with your family.
I mean, so, this is launching on Easter. So hopefully some of you are listening on Easter. If not, take this a little bit as backwards, but go chase a bunny.
Yeah, go do an Easter egg hunt.
Go find
Like,
some
who cares?
colorful eggs and stuff your face with chocolate and
Reese's peanut
hang
butter
out
eggs
and-
are hands down the best Reese's all year. Go get yourself some.
that is a hill she does die
I
on.
will die on that hill.
Regularly argues with people on that. So she's a connoisseur. When she was pregnant with our oldest, we kept Reese's peanut butter cups
In business.
in business. And I say we because, as a good husband, I wanted to go through it with her. And I had to support her all I could. I have not lost the baby weight
Neither of
from
us.
10 years ago. But you know what? I'm a jollier person because of it. Okay.
All
So
right.
let's jump into it. So if you talk to most people in our community, let me correct that. We talk to a lot of people in our community.
Yeah.
They're going to tell you that it is very common knowledge that Christianity, Catholicism stole our holidays. They stole our holidays' iconography, and they took everything from the pagans, right? But this is the whole basis to it, because we're gonna challenge that. We're gonna talk about it because are there similarities between Christian and pagan holidays? Yes.
Were there some absorption of rituals and lore that got absorbed into Christian holidays? Absolutely.
Yeah. When people convert, if they've been doing something and celebrating something one certain way for generations, they're gonna bring that family tradition into the fold with. And for a lot of these, because we're talking about a time of mass conversion, we're not looking at family traditions, we're looking at cultural traditions.
Yes.
So they bring it with them. We'll touch into a lot of that. Like one very big one, especially when we talk about Yule and Christmas. So does nature itself influence both pagan and Christian holidays and celebrations? Yes.
Yeah.
If you're having a celebration during the same time of year, you're gonna have the same imagery.
And you're usually going to have the same reasons for having that celebration. End of harvest, beginning of harvest, like beginning of
Yes.
planting. Something, to celebrate the end of the year, like, or the beginning of the year. Like, okay, everybody has a New Year's celebration, like, depending on where they put their New Year's Eve.
Yep.
It is what it is, but these are things that we as humans clock
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
universally.
There's a reason why so many cultures around the world use images like flowers and baby animals for springtime celebrations. That's when it all pops up.
Yep, that's when you're seeing it.
Now, did Christianity create some holidays to overshadow ancient pagan traditions? Yup, they sure did. And
Why would they?
we're gonna cover those too.
It's called
Right?
colonization, guys.
But it's not all of them. Okay. And the ones we're gonna jump into first are gonna be the two big main ones. Okay. And it's the ones that we hear most often. You will not be surprised that these are the ones we're talking about first. Spoiler alert, today, Easter is one of them.
I would also like to point out that when you look, because we're about to get into the Wheel of the Year, when you look at the Wheel of the Year, you are seeing holidays from multiple cultures. It is an appropriative calendar that deals with the dates and the fire festivals and the times of year that were celebrated by multiple cultures.
Essentially what we're looking at is an adoption of a annual celebration calendar that now people scream that Christianity stole, but at its absolute best is a mirror image of that.
Like, and we're going to get into this, but Mabon, not a holiday. It's a god.
And ironically, one that has had zero inclusion in the holiday except for the name.
Yeah. Yule, that's Norse, but then you have Imbolc, Bealtaine, Lunasa, and Samhain that are all Irish.
So we can, we will automatically directly say Irish as a person who studies and worships Irish paganism. Those are going to be the ones that I'm going to say, oh, those are Irish. They technically do fall into the realm of Celtic because the Scots have those same holidays, as do the rest of the countries that fall into the Celtic title, which, in case anybody's wondering, is really just something to denote those 5 or 6 countries that have a similar and a base language.
Yeah.
The different forms of Gaelga or Gaelic or Irish or Scottish or however they're going to say it. In Irish, it is just Gaelga, but that translates to Irish, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's countries that have a similar language root. That's really all that the notion of Celtic is.
It's like saying, so there's the Celtic language, there's Germanic language, there are the Romance languages that are Latin based. It's a similar delineation.
Yes. Yep, exactly. So before I'm gonna go through the list in order. But one thing we need to understand about the Wheel of Year, this did not take hold as being common, and even really come into as a concept until the 1960s. This is so when you look at it, Wicca is probably one of unless you're looking at strange cults and offshoots, Wicca is one of the newest religions to history. It the 50s is when it was created and really came about and organized as Wicca. The Wheel of the Year came about in the 60s, and it wasn't even fully set until in this, well into the 70s when they finally dezoned, because there's actually 2 different versions of the Wheel of the Year, right? So the 8 holidays that fall into it, we have Yule / winter solstice, we have Imbolc, Ostara / spring equinox, Beltane, Letha or the summer solstice, Lughnasadh, Mabon or autumn equinox, and then Samhain. Now, the reason why we have to differentiate with the solstices and the equinoxes is part of where this
schism
goes, because it was originally written with the Celtic side to it, and then a lady who I can't remember if she was from Germany or just from the region or just embraced the fact that there is different people out there. She included and started doing the stuff like Ostara and Letha.
Yule,
because no, Yule's always been Yule.
You have it as / winter solstice.
Oh no, you're right. I'm sorry. I'm tired, guys.
Yeah.
I didn't get much sleep this week, which is, makes the brain a little foggy. I do have a giant cup of coffee, so we're getting there. She looked at it, and I can't remember her name off the top of my head. I should have probably noted it down, but she looked at it as, hey, this is all very Celtic, Britannic, Northern European. What about us? So they threw it in there. And then there was some disagreement and argument about, are the solstices and equinoxes as important as the other 4? So there was a battle between that. But it wasn't until really the 70s, like I want to say it was like 76-ish, that it became set in stone.
Yeah.
Right. Now, again, not Wiccan, have never been Wiccan. These are just things that I've taken from research and from the historical standpoint. If I am misspeaking, please correct me. We're going to go through all the different ways you can comment and contact us on, especially on this episode.
I'm sorry if you're that mad. I'm sure you'll find a way. I would.
Now there are other holidays, and we're going to touch on to some of them. One specifically being Valentine's Day. We already talked about that in a previous episode, but that's going to be one example of the Christians trying to overshadow and it going horribly wrong.
Yeah.
Which has now put Valentine's Day like high up on my list of holidays. We're definitely going to start celebrating.
Honestly, well, first off, we celebrate it anyway because it's like right around my birthday. So, but like just to basically to say fuck you to the Catholic Church is also super fun.
So let's get started. Like I said, the first two main holidays we're going to go over on this are the ones that you hear people bitch about the most. It's the ones where they try to throw out the most, oh, they stole this from us, they stole this.
And there are so many fantastic educators and historians that will be like ad nauseum on social media going like, guys, calm down. It's not this. I've seen Morgan Daimler do it. I've seen
I love them.
Maria Kvilik do it. I've seen Laura O'Brien do it. Like,
yeah,
so many people who know what the fuck they're talking about.
But even if you take out those big names that, you know, if you don't know them, pause, rehear those names and look into them. Okay. These are world renowned people that everybody should know. Right. Personal opinion, but
years upon years of research and experience and life.
Yep.
To share.
So even without them, I will agree and take note to the fact that you are seeing more people on social media counter some of these arguments.
Yes, more and more people have been listening to those voices and being like, look, I heard so-and-so say something about this, so I did some research and I'm learning that this is all bullshit.
Now, great. You know, you still have 8 voices
to one.
You know, the 8 voices now come in and then scream them down and get them to back off. But that used to be 10, 12.
Yeah. But those 8 voices are like, well, I'm a 7th generation witch. Was your mom fucking 10? I'm sorry. There have been Wiccans in the world for less than 100 years. You are not a 7th generation anything. Fuck off.
This
sorry, guys.
It's a good thing we're not monetized on any platform, because this one here would get us demonetized, at least for this episode.
At least for this episode, they'd be like,
All right, so now let's talk about Easter. Okay. So actually, before we jump on, let me just point out that because of the time frame of the Wheel of Year, and this is what they usually complain the most about, I mean, argument over.
Yeah.
It's let's say give it the oldest at 1960. You're looking at 85 years opposed to 2,000 years of Christianity. Right? Time may not be linear, but a calendar and years are.
Yeah, like
so.
But we made it so, and
so we're gonna, you know, we're still gonna dive into it. But the sarcastic side of me just wants to be like, mic drop, it's overdone. But, and actually, I've actually done that before just to see people's shocked faces when they think it's that simplistic, and I'm not wrong. But okay, so we're getting into Easter. So the whole thing of Ostara, this is 100% a modern holiday. All right, and we're going to dive into the historical side to it to show you that this is modern. So therefore, if it is a modern holiday, quite literally, Christianity could not have stolen it.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to get the first main thing that we need to talk about, and that is Ostara. The Ostra. There's
not associated with the fucking Ishtar.
Okay.
Just because people who speak English think Ostara, Easter, and Ishtar all sound the same does not mean they have the same origins.
Exactly.
Sorry. Like, I get really heated about this one.
I know you do.
Just because Proto-Indo-European languages share some similarities does not make them the same thing.
Very true. Also, the origin of where it's first found calls into question the validity of an old god. Now, I'm a firm believer in tulpas, that things being created through worship and through belief. So is Yostra...
It's your death plan.
It's my death plan, so I better believe this, right? So has Yostra become a goddess and been, is now there? I'll say yes. I'll jump right behind that bandwagon, but it doesn't mean it's no longer modern, right? So the first time we actually see in writing this concept of Yostra is in 1835 in a book called Deutsche Mythology by Jacob Grimm.
You might know him from the Grimm's Brothers fairy tales. I'm sorry. I'm such a dickhead about this. I'm so sorry.
This one alone. You need to see facts over feelings. You're killing me. So it does go deeper than that, right? So he got the concept from Saint Bede, who was obviously a Catholic saint, and an author, and he touched into this potential concept of a singular goddess that Grimm then kind of took and ran as Yostra. When you dive into Bede's research and thought process, what you really find is he's kind of taking various goddesses from the different regions from the different Germanic regions,
yeah,
and kind of creating one. All right, and this is now where we get Grimm taking it, running with it. Now, just because he wrote fairy tales, does that necessarily mean that his esoteric research is bad? No, but
it's actually probably pretty fucking good.
When we also, let's cross-reference this one here. When you look at somebody like Yeats, fantastic poet, he did a lot of work in advancing the modern pagan movement. However, him and his buddies were also known to create whole new gods and goddesses, new mythology as a way to capture attention and draw people in and keep them in, right? And to show a link between different countries.
I'm also going to point out that linguistically speaking, Eostra makes no sense for a Germanic-speaking country.
Yeah.
It makes no sense for a Slavic-speaking country. It makes no sense for a Scandinavian country. It makes no sense for a Nordic-based country.
Okay, but if you take the Nordic languages and combine it with the Germanic language, would that create a more understandable name for Yostra?
No.
Okay.
Like, it literally makes no sense for it to be an ancient name because they didn't use S's and T's that much.
Okay.
Like, it just makes no sense.
That's fair.
Linguistically speaking.
That's fair.
If you literally look at etymology, it makes no sense.
Okay. So the other thing that kind of dives in on this one is when you look at their actual writings and you look at some of the wordings that they actually use, a lot of stuff that's attributed to him and his core group of people and their movement, even they referred to Ostara or Yostra or whichever direction they were going with the name at the moment as hypothetical.
Yeah.
And it's hypothetical because there is zero historical mention of worship, of festivals, of anything that points towards one of the ancient gods. Okay. And that is right there the big red flag, because even though a lot of our other cultures were not written language or not written historical, it was still passed down. We still have an understanding of...
There's still an oral history of some nature.
Yeah, of who the Norse gods were, who the Irish gods were, who the Egyptian gods were. And, we understand a lot of them because of how the oral tradition then passed it down and kept it going. This has zero facts on it, okay? Even just looking at her being denoted as a fertility goddess and a spring goddess, right? So the root of her name is the equivalent to the Saxon word for east.
And the German word for east. Ost is east in German.
Yeah.
Like,
so
Ostara, Osten, what any of.
So yeah, so it's the east, and the thought process was, okay, well, if her name is is east, then it's a rising sun,
It's
which
beginnings.
means springtime and means fertility. So now she's a fertility and spring goddess, just because her name means east.
Right.
Right. There's the further on hypothesis that Ostara and worship and the festival was so important to the German speakers that the church had to choose Osten as the name for their Easter celebration. Now, hold up, pump the brakes.
East is in the name. Why wouldn't they name it East?
Easter.
Yeah, like Osten is literally German for Easter.
Yes, and that's what they're saying. Like, they're saying that, oh, well, the German word is now Osten for Easter because of how important Ostara was.
Yeah, I just think that like Easter came first and they're like, cool, that's Osten in our language.
Yeah, because if Ostara was so important, if the worship of Ostara was so important, why is there no historical evidence of it? Again, another flag to it. Now, I'm not saying that this isn't a goddess that shouldn't be respected and worshipped and all that good stuff now, but when you look at the historical time frame to it, once again, time may not be linear, but calendars are.
If you look at the context surrounding it, there's no context.
Yeah. You know, the Christians and Catholics have been celebrating Easter for 2,000 years. Damn near 2,000 years. Right?
Love it or hate it, it is what it is.
In this aspect, they were quite literally there first for quite some time. Right?
And that's not saying there weren't spring equinox celebrations. There weren't spring equinox things happening throughout the pagan world well before Jesus.
Yeah.
There absolutely was. Hell, we see it in Judaism with Passover.
I mean, that's not necessarily a spring thing,
but it's the same time of year.
It's the same time of year. Yes.
There are religious observations for spring equinox that we can record, that we have recorded, that have been proven. Why are they dying on this Ostara Hill is what baffles me.
Yeah. So now we talked about the goddess. Now let's talk about two other concepts that neo-pagans would like to argue when it comes to Easter having stolen this stuff. Two right off the bat: eggs and bunnies. Right? Why is the Easter bunny hiding eggs? Right? These are pagan symbolism. It's understandable that, except that it's not. So we'll dive into eggs first. So when you look at eggs, back in the medieval times, eggs was part of the Lenten sacrifice along with meat, mostly because the poor common folk can't afford meat, right? So it's really easy for them to sacrifice meat when they can't have it anyway.
Right.
So eggs was another big Lenten sacrifice out there for them. And at that point in time, a lot of what they would do was they would have to tithe eggs to the Catholic Church on Good Friday. And then on Sunday, everybody feasted on eggs and meat and all the other jubilant good stuff. Okay, but then why do they decorate? Well, that's because rich people got involved. That was started not long after, it was still medieval times. It was closer to the end of the medieval times. But it was royalty would get involved with it. And instead of giving the eggs to the church, because, they buy their way into heaven. It's above them, or
they could just get a
the church that's below them.
Dispensation for their sins later. It's fine.
And they have to be extra because they're royals. So they would gold leaf decorate the eggs and use different paints and dyes and stuff like that just show everybody, look at how special we are because we can do this. And then they would gift it out to their family and friends, right? We still see that,
There's still a lot of, you can even find them on TikTok and stuff of people doing some beautiful, intricate egg decoration with very simple dyes and wax. It's gorgeous. I love watching it.
And these are the precursors to the Fabergé eggs.
Yes.
Right. And then it kind of evolves from there, and it goes forward and goes on. And then in the 1600s, and this is where, so people are gonna be like, "Oh, what about the Easter egg hunts? Why an Easter egg hunt?" Martin Luther. Martin Luther,
Protestant
the
Reformation.
Protestant Reformation. One of his big teachings around Easter was on night before, the morning of, or however, whenever the time frame he wanted to do it, is usually probably the morning of. He would take all the men of the church out into the woods or out into the field and outside, and they would hide the eggs for the women and children to go find. This is to represent the women who had to find their way to Jesus's tomb to find it empty.
The discovery of Jesus's empty tomb.
Yes. Now, there are some things about the eggs that would very much be considered along the pagan line, right? It's always a sign of fertility and rebirth, and
New
of birth,
life,
obviously.
new beginnings.
Another crossover idea between it is the eggshell itself is seen as a tomb. So the tomb is going to be empty. So it represents Jesus rising from the dead. It also represents new life and life coming from death. So there's a pagan Christian crossover in that also. All right. But Jess, why a bunny? Why the Easter bunny? This is looking back again into early Christian art and iconography. The bunny was a symbol of and painted into a lot of paintings with the Virgin Mary.
I want Haas and pepper stew now.
You want to eat the Virgin Mary?
Why not? Brown chicken, brown cow.
So essentially, the Easter bunny bringing the eggs is Mary bringing Jesus into the world, right?
Somebody fertilized that egg.
So again, we see these images getting put in there 200 years before the concept of Ostara even being in its infancy, and 300 years before the holidays even put together.
Yeah.
So these are things that we need to be taken into consideration of when they say, "Oh, they stole this." They really didn't. There's a historical backing for a lot of things, and that's it.
And yes, they may have taken imagery, they may have taken iconography from previous, we'll say, cultures. Because that's what happens when you start absorbing and adapting. Like, adaptation is not necessarily appropriation. It is just going like, this is something everybody recognizes as meaning this in this region of the world. So we're going to just kind of roll with that.
We're just going to do it. We're going with it. So, all right, now let's move on to Yule and Christmas. All right. So, again, Jess, do we know what year the first recorded celebration of Yule was?
1400s?
1475. I just really thought you were just going to read it off the page.
I wasn't going to be that big of a dick. I do know it was like, it was post-Christianization Nordic or Scandinavian society. And that would mean it would have to be post like 1300.
Yeah. So what we looked at and what we saw or see as the early celebrations for Yule, it's attached to Odin's Wild Hunt.
Yep.
It's heavily influenced with animal sacrifice, which then leads to big feasts. If you're going to kill the goat, you're going to eat the goat.
Well,
Pretty common knowledge.
And also, this would also relate to the time of year you're doing your midwinter slaughter.
Yeah.
To tie you over until spring.
Yep.
So yeah, you would be slaughtering the animals. So yeah, you're going to leave some for the gods. But you're also going to be putting the rest of it into the fucking smokehouse because
it's going to sustain you for the rest.
It's going to sustain you for the rest of the
Yep.
year.
One of the things that was associated to, and I'm going to have you speak on this a little bit more because it's the path that you are on. It's called The Thing, and it took place every 9 years. Now, before you get into what it really was, a lot of us understand it and know it and have seen it in the show Vikings, right? And this was for those of you who have watched it, those who didn't, brief discussion. So they all would gather every 9th year with the king and they would bring sacrifices. So they would bring chickens, goats, a cow, whatever it was that they were sacrificing at the time, and 9 of everything was sacrificed. However,
9 males of everything,
oh, cool.
according
Sorry,
to
9
according to the writings, but
yeah,
I'll get into that.
For the 9th year of the thing, they would also bring 9 human sacrifices for the gods.
No archaeological evidence.
So we're gonna probably do a little bit of a tangent here because we discussing this morning and we just went off we were almost late to record this because we just got dove into this conversation on human sacrificing.
Yeah.
So let's have that discussion again right now before we even dive into the rest of the things. I think there's something very important because when you talk to a lot of Christians, especially ones who are deep into the church, and by that I mean spokespeople for or work for or just are the insane kind who think they have to go to church 19 times a week. They're gonna just aim and look at all pagans as being completely evil because we sacrifice. It is that I'm aware of, and we're gonna cover a little bit more because you educated me this morning. But up until now, I was only aware of 2 cultures with recorded human sacrifice. And I'm not even going to say, I'm not including children. I haven't looked into it enough to say whether they were killing kids or not. But I know there are 2 that is written down and common knowledge that human sacrifice to the gods was part of their practice. One was the Aztecs. The other was the early Canaanites. So the people that eventually became the Jewish people who then eventually became the Christians. So know your own history before you cast stones at others.
Egyptians.
Did they do human sacrifice to the gods?
I thought they would do similar to what the Norse did in that, like, sometimes the slaves would be sent with their masters or the wife would be sent with the husband. But I could be wrong.
Now that you're saying that, yes, I've read that. I don't know. But I've read multiple articles that say, so I think the difference of that is that's not necessarily sacrifice to the gods.
It's sacrifice to the person
that is the fair. So
that's fair.
I'm not saying there's no evidence of human sacrifice and execution, but it's not like what people think and say. So there's a lot of times archaeological evidence of an execution. But what's that execution? What is it? Is that somebody who's being just straight executed and killed for the gods? Or is that Chester the molester who got his skull crashed in and thrown into a bog because he was diddling little kids? And it was wrong. And on top of that, if you're going to be killing somebody and executing somebody for crimes, or
wouldn't it all be in the same place? Wouldn't you be adjudicating this at a
why
commonly known?
Just then give that offering to the gods, right?
Yeah.
We don't know. That's really what it comes down to. Because there was no written history, we don't know. We can speculate.
We have archaeological evidence that gives us ideas of what may or may not have been happening, but we don't know.
We'll never actually know, except for, like I said, those 2
we know
who wrote it down. They have receipts. So, there's that difference. And I like adding in the early or pre-Canaanites just because, like I said, know your own history before you start throwing stones at glass houses.
So, going back to human sacrifice in specifically, because we're talking about Nordic cultures, there is no record of human sacrifice. There is one Christian who was trying to paint the Norse people as barbaric, saying about every 9 years they go and meet up and they sacrifice a bunch of things. And yes, animals were a common sacrifice. It was commonly known that you sacrificed animals. He's like, but then they also do 9 men. It's like,
how do they do those 9 men?
Okay, all of the Viking meeting places that have been on Earth show no evidence of that.
Yeah.
There is evidence of sacrifice and slaughter of prisoners of war.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of a battle, it was commonly thought that they would sacrifice them to Odin, or probably whatever their local god was, because Odin was not the All-Father till almost Christianity. Um, there was a couple wells have been found that had valuable goods and some children that had been sacrificed. Wells are big in Norse mythology, so it was commonly thought that like you wouldn't poison a well with dead bodies unless you were desperate. Like it was an act of desperation more than an act of ritual and regular.
Well, and for something like that, I think it would be interesting to find out or see what condition those bodies were in. Is there signs of skulls being crushed or decapitation?
Is there a sign of illness?
Is there or is there a sign of so would these kids have been ritualistically sacrificed, or were these like a plague situation and the bodies of the unfortunate dead tossed down the well as a offering and sacrifice to Odin?
Yeah. Or maybe not even Odin, maybe Air or
Yeah.
Frigg or, any of them.
I say Odin because I know the symbology of the well is to
It's
to
like,
the
with it being a
one-eye
well,
being
I would
suspended
say
over it.
somebody who is in charge of a well.
Yeah.
In Norse mythology. So it'd be Idun, maybe Freya, Odin,
What
Ymir.
about the Mimir? I was going to say, what about the old dude? This is by the well.
The one whose head's just chilling out in there.
Yeah.
Also, something that I don't think a lot of people know is that Nordic societies were very democratic. So,
Get your support pillows, people.
yeah, get your support pillows, guys. Iceland
This is Amanda. She's my support pillow. This one.
Iceland is the oldest sustained democracy in Europe.
Well, that means that means they vote a lot.
They vote on everything. So the thing was literally where people came together to vote.
Okay.
It was where feuds were adjudicated. It's where treaties were made. It's where chieftains were elected. They elected the people that they chose to follow. And even after we had, I believe it was Harold in like Norway, even after he became the first king of Norway, they still had things, and they were places people came to air grievances and adjudicate their lives, where like maybe a representative of the king would be there to help deal with that. It was a representative democracy, guys. So Christianity wasn't a bloody overthrow, specifically in Scandinavian countries. Yes, after Christianity took root, and then we have like the Middle Ages come through, and we have the Inquisition and all that shit. Yes, Christianity became bloody because people do what people do when they're in power and they want to stay there.
The society back then was a bloodier society.
But in general, the Nordic countries voted on becoming Christian. They elected to become Christian. And it's like, you guys want to like have shows like Vikings and like, oh, these guys are such badasses and they want to do is fight, rape, and pillage. You think they're going to just let Christianity bowl over them without a fight if they didn't want it?
Yeah. That's fair. That's fair.
Again, context. Think about who you're talking about before you try to say how they're doing.
Yeah.
To this day, Scandinavian countries are touted as being very egalitarian, being very democratic. That is literally in their blood.
Fair. Okay, so some other things that we see in Yule that's kind of a crossover. The tree.
Yeah.
Right? Well, this circles right back around to what we said earlier with mass conversions and even any conversion, really. But your traditions are going to come with you. You're not going to abandon all of your old traditions. So this is why we see the Christmas tree coming in from the cold and surviving into Christianity and not just in a pagan context anymore, right? Santa Claus. Trust me, it does actually fit. A lot of people have absorbed the thought that Odin is Santa.
Which is hysterical. I mean, I get it. 8-legged horse, 8 tiny reindeer, dude with a beard riding through the countryside sounds like Odin. Like, honestly, it's giving Odin.
On surface level, it makes sense. And a couple years ago, I do think I did a Mythology Monday for the shop Facebook page talking about how Odin is potentially Santa Claus.
And it's fun. It's just not real.
Yeah. So in connection of the Wild Hunt, right?
Yeah.
So if Odin was
that's where I was going.
Going through the countryside and he came upon your house, what was thought to have been happening in that state?
If your house is in his way, he wrecked it.
And during the Wild Hunt, what happened to people who were seen or found by the hunt?
Murder
Most foul. Not really murder, they just would take the soul.
Yeah. You're like, yeet, you're going to Valhalla.
You were instantly absorbed into it and you died.
Yeah.
So the big difference between that and Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Right? So then, we can even look at the Christian side to it. Where did Santa Claus come from? Saint Nicholas. Or did he? So
not a saint anymore.
Saint Nicholas has lost his sainthood. There's actually a few of them.
Frige.
Yep. Saint Bridget, Saint Nicholas. I can't remember.
Saint Patrick?
No, not Saint. There's historical evidence of. And it's because there's not enough historical evidence that they actually existed.
Yeah.
Right? Which Bridget is not that surprising because there is very obvious.
It was obvious, like, we're just going to be like,
Goddess
hey.
Bridge as Saint Bridget, right? So that's not surprising.
That was them desperately trying to convert the Irish.
They will have to, or potentially will have to recanonize Nicholas because they have found a body that is potentially his.
They think they found his
They think they found him, right? And in the strangest place ever. The Basilica of Saint Nicholas.
Oh, wow. It's almost like he should be buried there.
In the church that was erected in his honor, underneath in one of the catacombs, they found a body. They're like, oh, this
like,
might
shit.
be him. Maybe he was real after all. But so if Nicholas was real, and if the stories attributed to him are accurate, he would go around on Christmas Eve it's December 8th, 6th. So the night before, so it'd be the 5th. He would go around and leave candies or little toys or fruits and nuts and all that kind of good stuff in people's shoes that were left out for him.
And in fact, we still do this.
We still do this. This is something my dad grew up celebrating in Czechoslovakia. But it was St. Nicholas, an angel, and Krampus that came around. And if you weren't good, Krampus got you. So that is where people.
Grandson of Loki, by the way.
Grandson of Loki. This is true. This is where a lot of people think the Santa Claus lore began. In actuality, I want to say it was like the 1920s or 30s or somewhere around. No, not even that. Maybe
Santa Claus.
Not even like
brought
40s
to you
or
by
50s.
Coca-Cola.
100%. The modern concept of Santa Claus comes from Coca-Cola.
I do love my Coca-Cola says Familia on it.
Yeah. Now, I mean, obviously there were stories of Santa Claus and Saint Nick, and it had evolved already.
There were cultural context.
But when you look at the modern version that we know of, the red suit, the big beard, the fat jolly guy that winks at you and rosy cheeks, the modern image of Santa Claus is a marketing tool of Coca-Cola.
And it makes sense given the fact that he really took off during the Great Depression. People needed something.
Yep. There's actually a really great YouTuber, podcaster, TikToker, Fat Electrician, and he is one of the hosts of Unsubscribed podcasts. It's a veteran-based podcast. Most of you probably wouldn't enjoy it. Not gonna lie, nothing wrong. I love it, but it reminds me of hanging out with my buddies from the course. So, but he is huge on World War II era history, the way he tells stories is just entertaining as all hell. Quasi offensive just because he is so blunt in life. But he did this really great segment recently on the history of Coca-Cola, starting back. It originally started from a Confederate general that was trying to get off of morphine.
So, let's do cocaine.
Exactly. And there's a whole wide thing going. All this starts there, and it even works his way up, and there's a chainmail to the Karate Kid, Ralph Macchio, and Clint Eastwood. So that's definitely his tism is going into the history. And
Yeah, that's definitely his neurodivergence,
yeah,
going like
so-
Coca-Cola. Here's how we got here.
Exactly. So another thing that people say with Christmas that is the church stealing it would be the date, because it coincides so wonderfully with the winter solstice.
I mean, it's a little after.
I mean, it's a little after, but it's not necessarily associated with the winter solstice directly. It was associated with Sol Invictus.
Istanbul was Constantinople. It's Istanbul, not Constantinople.
And we have all of this to thank with Emperor Constantine. So Constantine, and if you're not aware, Constantine was the Roman emperor that took Rome from a pagan society to a Christian one. Okay. Some people like to say like
his mother is credited with founding the Temple of the Tomb, things like that. Like, very much looked into the story of Jesus and trying to find sacred sites associated.
So a lot of people want to give credit as he was on his deathbed and he came to the truth. That I can't argue that with anything but observation.
It makes a good story.
It makes a great story, and
the Christians are like, "We got the emperor, guys!"
But all he did in setting up of the Roman Catholic Church, the creation of the Bible, the setting of the holidays and the dates, the setting of the liturgical calendar,
Council of Nicaea,
all the stuff that had to go on. This is years of work.
Yeah.
Right? So let's dive into a little bit more of why December 25th. It is...
Happy birthday to me!
It is rumored to have been Constantine's birthday. Constantine, because that was his birthday, and the solstice was so close by, which was also the feast of Sol Invictus, which, when you look at it, if you throw in his Greek association, would be Helios,
the sun
god. So obviously the solstice, if you're a powerful leader that is born around the feast of a specific god, that now tends to be the god that you follow for your life. Right?
That's your patron. You're like, my patron is now.
Yep. So his patron was a sun god whose feast was a couple days before his. His was around December 25th. So we have an egotistical ruler, and I'm saying that because show me royalty that's not.
Literally, this is Donald Trump deciding.
Kinda, yeah. This is the birth of the Gulf of America.
Yeah, this is literally him going, you know what? That's a good day for a holiday. It's perfect. It's the best. It's the best day of the year. We're gonna make it.
Great holiday.
It's gonna be a great holiday. It's gonna be perfect.
Best ever. Anyway, that is the closest to what any kind of politics you'll hear on this show.
Yeah.
But what he ends up doing is he's stacking the deck. Whether most people realize it or not, whether, scholars will even agree with this or not, I don't know. This is my assumption, but it makes perfect damn sense to me, right? So what happens? He's an egotistical guy who now gets to have his birthday celebrated by billions.
Every year. And even people who don't celebrate Christmas religiously
still celebrates Christmas.
Still are like, I'll take the day off. I'll eat some turkey.
Who doesn't like a happy fat dude that's going to give you things?
Yeah, like, I want presents. Cool.
So he stacks the deck. He gets worship on himself. So maybe he was the precursor. Maybe he's the precursor to my let's become a god theory.
Yeah, he's a tulpa.
But now we have the feast of two gods right there, all now intertwined and connected. So this is why I say stack the deck. If he goes to his grave and Christianity is correct, he could be like, hey, look, I said it, so everybody's going to celebrate your birthday and they're going to love you for eternity.
Yeah. If he's wrong, he's like, Soul, I
hey,
got you, my dude.
Dude, I totally hid your feast day into this new religion, and billions of people throughout history are going to celebrate your feast day thinking it's for this other guy.
Yeah.
He appeased two gods at once, which is genius. It's a smart genius move. So this is where we get
He's playing
December
the cup
25th.
game with gods.
He's playing the cup game with the gods. And, you know, I mean,
if I were an emperor of Rome at this time, I'd do it too.
Yeah, 100%. There's one other part here. I'm just checking my notes because I know there's a section here where I'm. Okay, that comes over after what they did steal. Okay.
Okay.
Because I'm gonna get into the liturgical calendar and why.
Yeah. The liturgical calendars.
You know, we'll jump ahead a little bit and we'll do that now. So when you look at the liturgical calendar, which is what at least the Catholic Church uses as their basis of when the holidays are going to be.
Yeah.
There's really only one set point and set date, and that is
December
Christmas.
25th.
Right? The liturgical calendar starts with the first Sunday of Advent. So it is 4 Sundays before Christmas. Again, that's not a set date. Christmas is, and that's it, right?
Everything revolves around the birth.
Revolves around the birth. So everything moving forward, like you start with Advent, then you have the Christmas time, then you have regulars time, Lenten time. So
You've been to a church and flipped through the missal book, has seen like the 30th Sunday in ordinary time, correct, or the like 5th Sunday of Lent. Like it's there.
Yep.
And they just have their calendar like, we need this many Sundays before Lent starts, and then we have this many Sundays in Lent, which then is Easter, and like,
yes.
But everything comes from Christmas.
Exactly. So now, did they probably stack the deck a little bit and increase and decrease the length of ordinary time to have things fall in specific times? Yes. Right. If you have a religious celebration based on a guy that is rising from the dead, you're going to obviously want to put that in springtime, because everything is rising from the dead. Everything's been dead over winter and is now back to life. It makes sense to use Mother Nature's own symbology.
And you also want it on a Sunday.
It has to be a Sunday.
It has to be a Sunday. And you're going to want Good Friday. You're going to want you're going to want Holy Week. So you got to make sure like everything lines up that you can have a Holy Week.
Yep. So this is why you see it coming in the time frame that Easter comes in the time frame it does. Not necessarily them going like, okay, let's get this as close to the equinox as possible because we're going to take this from the pagans. No, it's them setting up their own calendar of events. Okay, and that's where it's all based from. It all starts again. It all starts from an egotistical emperor stacking the deck in his own damn favor
and making sure everybody celebrates his birthday.
So, you know what? If you want to celebrate Christmas, but you don't want to add the Jesus aspect to it, but you still kind of dig the idea of a birthday, happy birthday, Constantine.
Or Yuletide, or Saturnalia. Like, there are so many things you can celebrate.
Yep.
Around that time of year, that it's cool if you just pick one.
Yep. All right. So the next holiday, and this one gets me fired up every year. In fact, I just taught a class on it, and this is St. Patty's Day. So first off, it's not a pagan holiday. All right. So we don't have a rat in this race.
No.
Right.
The only reason he gets fired up about this is because he's half Irish and his name is Patrick.
Well, no, I also get fired up on this because it's just highly inaccurate.
Yeah, no, and it's all like...
What we're talking about specifically on this is the whole thing of this is celebrating the genocide of pagans and druids, right? It is not. The snakes aren't symbolic for that. I'm going to be this as quick as possible on this without going on tangents, but snakes haven't been in Ireland for well over 10,000 years since the end of the last ice age.
Somebody had a snake in Ireland last week.
Yeah, but that was imported.
I know. I just saw it on Garrett Noon's TikTok. He got real mad.
That's all right. And as far as the slaughter of pagans and druids, two things on that. One, those are from recorded books from 200 and 700 years after St. Patrick's death. And they openly bragged about him slaughtering all these people in mass conversions, right? So why would you then become secretive and talking code of that really being the snakes? They've been happy about preaching on this for hundreds of years.
Christians, especially early Christians, are super happy to brag about how many people they murdered.
Yeah.
In the name of Jesus.
Now, and on top of it, the concept of it being the snakes wasn't introduced until an op-ed piece in 1911. All right. Taking that a little bit further, when you look at, there are writings, we have writings from St. Patrick, right? Again, there wasn't ideas of him killing hundreds of thousands of people until 200 years and 700 years after his death.
There are direct writings of him having a very close companion.
By his own account, he would pay to play. When he went to an area, he would pay off the king or the chieftain or whoever was the ruler or the leader of the area. He would pay them for the right to speak publicly on Christianity. So it's not what that is. Okay. I could go on. I would go on, but we're going to move forward.
He just paid to boost his views.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like any other speaking event. Like, hey, I'd like to come in and I'm going to pay you this much to use your stage and talk to your people.
Yeah.
Literally all it was. In fact, he writes that he thinks he didn't do enough, and that his conversions and bringing people to the light and to Jesus and God, he didn't go far enough with it. And not far enough, because that makes it sound like he would prefer to slaughter people, but he just didn't.
He didn't reach as many as he wanted with his words.
Yeah. Okay. So we did say that there was some stealing and some overshadowing. So where does that come from? Right? Where is it where the Christians actually did steal from it? So there are 1, 2, 3, 4 ones we're going to talk about right now that are an attempted overshadowings. Okay. And the first one is going to be Samhain.
Yeah.
And their attempt to overshadow Samhain, we were looking at All Saints Day and All Souls Day, November 1st, November 2nd.
The thing is, everyone celebrates Halloween.
Exactly.
So,
but not just that. Like,
again, if you have candy, people will come.
it goes deeper than that, though, because when you look at it and you pull up and you research and look at countries and cultures from around the world, all around that same time frame,
everybody's got like a harvest festival.
Some sort of, not even harvest festival, some sort of festival or recognition of the dead.
Yeah.
And of the ancestors and of the this and of the that. Now, when you look at the Southern Hemisphere, it's kind of,
it inverts.
It inverts. But
where we're doing Easter, they're doing.
Yeah. It's that season, right? That end of summer into fall, or that fall.
Really end of fall.
End of fall going into close to winter. Most cultures have that, right? So yeah, were they trying to overshadow Samhain and replace it with All Saints Day and All Souls Day? Maybe. Or this could just be their...
I think what they were trying to do is more understand that people were saying goodbye to their departed and having that grieving period. And they were like, instead of lighting bonfires or doing this, that, and the other thing, that seems a little pagan. Maybe we just go to church and pray.
Yeah. So, I'm going to give them like partial credit on that. Right. The next one, we have Imbolc, which is February 1st. And then we have Candlemas, which was created as the commemorating the presentation of Jesus to the Temple of Jerusalem. After that, we have, and this is the one that gets me.
This one gets me heated too.
Lunisad, aka Lammas or Loaf Mass, where they would leave offerings of the fruits, the first fruits of harvest to the church and to God. So here's where I am highly heated on this. Because people, and I hear this every year all the time, Lunicide, it's just so hard to say and pronounce and to spell, so I just call it Lammas. You're so upset
They're
about-
stealing your
they're
things, but
stealing
you're
your
using
things, but
the-
you're using the name
the literal of a mass.
of a holiday created for the sole purpose of replacing an actual pagan holiday.
Anytime you see MAS at the end of a holiday, Candlemas, Lammas, Christmas, guess what? That means mass. That means churchin', guys. Like,
So that's what gets me hit is and I think that's probably what sparks a lot of my disdain towards the lack of understanding of where things come from, because you want to cry about a Christmas tree being absorbed, you want to cry about Easter eggs.
Google is also free. Do you know how I learned how to pronounce Samhain and Lunasa? I typed them into Google and said, how do I pronounce this in Irish? And then I had a little person pop up on YouTube and say, just tell me.
And if you can't remember the name and not, or know how to spell it, because I mean, I'm going to agree. Irish is a language that the spelling is
Makes
bloody.
no sense to English speakers.
You can literally Google pagan holiday in August, and Lunasa is going to be the first one,
Right.
right?
And then you
So-
copy and paste that and be like, how do I say that?
So, people are using the erasure term because they're too late. I'm not going to hesitate on this, because you're too damn lazy to do the proper research for a holiday that you are supposed to hold so dear to your soul.
That you're mad that people stole it, but you can't be fucking bothered to decolonize your mind enough to
Yep.
figure out where it came from.
There is a phrase that I absolutely love, and we're actually going to do an entire episode later on in the year on that, decolonizing your practice. And this is a perfect example of it. Right?
Sorry, I get so heated about this one.
Yeah, and I get it. Lughnassadh, Lunasa,
Makes no fucking sense. I get it.
right? I have been studying Gelga, Irish, for 3 years now.
Duolingo has it, by the way, guys, if you want to play with the
I
alphabet.
still don't understand the basics.
Rules make no sense. There are none.
Basis of grammaric rules. I don't even get it.
It
I-
makes very good sense that the country has a drinking problem, because that is what their language is drinking problem.
I didn't think I had learned a single dang thing from it until I was watching a TikTok of three young Irish girls standing around talking about butter. And they just slipped in and out of the languages and back and forth between English and Irish very casually. And it was only like little words and phrases that got thrown in there. But after watching it, I was like, wait a second. And I
You're like,
watched it again.
followed that.
And it's like, I followed that completely. I understood exactly what they were talking about, including countertop. But I can't tell you what the word of countertop is.
Yeah,
Right.
like,
So Duolingo is great, and at the same time, it sucks. It's frustrating, but I love it, and I'm on like almost an 1,100 day
stretch.
stretch. Thank you. So that's part of my practice. That's part of my daily sacrifice to my gods and my goddess, is the attempt to learn at least a little bit of the culture, right? You can't be lazy about this, people. And especially if you want to get on your soapbox and bitch, moan, and scream about something, have your receipts.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why we say,
Prove me wrong.
we are getting very heated. Like, we get heated on this too. Our feelings do come into play a lot on this. However,
But please,
our
prove me
feelings are
wrong
based on facts.
and bring the receipts. If you
Bring
want to argue, I'm gonna need the research, guys.
I am the first one to
'Cause
admit
I've done
when
mine.
I'm wrong. If I am wrong on something, I will gladly publicly apologize and correct myself.
And I'll have learned something. I love learning.
Yeah. Ignorance isn't a bad thing. Ignorance is great.
Ignorance is curable. Stupidity is chronic.
Exactly. So let's make sure we're being ignorant on things and not stupid on things.
Yeah.
So now let's very briefly talk
Okay.
about the one time where Christianity tries to overshadow a pagan holiday.
Went real
and it
bad.
went real bad, and that's talking Valentine's Day. So Valentine's Day started as obviously the feast day for Saint Valentine, but it was
Fuck
placed.
for Jesus.
They placed it the day before Lupercalia. Am I saying that right? Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Which is a Roman holiday, a pagan holiday, which we touched on in depth in our it's like episode 3, I think.
Yeah, it was
3 or
supposed to be
4.
our sex magic episode, but our guest had to bow out that week, so we
did on all how cram it in there, it'll fit, I believe is what it's called. Where February crams in a whole bunch of holidays in just the first 2 weeks, and being the shortest month, that's even more impressive.
Right.
But so Lupercalia is, I mean, it's a swinger's paradise, because there was a whole lot of swinging that went on. There's a whole lot of fertilizing that went on. There's a whole lot of banging, right? So the church tries to overshadow it with the feast of Saint Valentine, who is known for marrying couples
Christians
in Christian fashion, even though it was illegal, and was martyred because of it. It was never supposed to be about love and intimacy and anything like that. It was at best just giving homage to a dude that was a good Christian, right? But now it's all about love, passion,
fucking the name of
Now-
Jesus.
with some carnal knowledge of your partner,
Your
or
significant
partners.
other.
So this is where the overshadowing went bad, and I'm sure the church doesn't give a crap anymore about it, but initially the church was a little butthurt that this is the direction the holiday took.
Honestly, I think we're learning something here. If it has candy or sex,
Jess is down.
it's going to stick around.
Sex sells, apparently, even in holidays.
Yep.
Okay, so we're gonna start wrapping this up here, people. Let's do a quick recap. Are there points that the church has stolen from pagans?
Yes.
Of course. That does come down to how you conquer people.
It's called colonization, guys. That's why you got to decolonize your practices.
Conquer a nation means that you replace their government and their religion.
Yep.
Have they stolen the holidays to the extent which the metaphysical and pagan and witch community scream and cry about? Hell no. And it's not just a no, it's a hell no.
There's nothing stopping you from celebrating Saturnalia, Lupercalia, what the fuck ever. There's literally nothing stopping you. Is the Coca-Cola Santa like really offending you that much? Calm down.
Yeah. Well, I don't think anybody really minds about the Coca-Cola Santa, but is a little baby in a manger that dangerous? Maybe
yeah.
that's a bad phrase. Historically speaking, a lot of wars, a lot of death.
It's a problem.
But my point being is, because somebody is celebrating the birth of their god, is that detrimental to your life that you can't
continue
with?
Yeah, that you can't, or that you just can't keep on doing what you do.
Or just ignore it. Guess what I'm doing for Easter? We're going to a brunch buffet. We're going to have some drinks and then wait for the kids to come home from spring break.
Look, I heard prime rib and mimosas, and I was like, I'm good.
Yeah.
Again, you keep.
Am I celebrating Jesus returning from the dead? No.
I'll probably do some gardening, but that's just because it's April.
Yeah, a couple reasons to that. One, not my religion anymore, so I'm not going to spend my time celebrating it. The other side to it is, when you look at a lot of pagan religions, God's coming back from the dead, not that impressive. People.
Not that impressive. Like, it kind of happens a lot.
A lot. So doing it once, but does that mean I haven't been wishing my customers at the restaurant a happy Easter? Because, yesterday, and will I do it today, and will I just say it tomorrow? Yeah, because people are celebrating their holiday. So what harm does it do to you to wish them a happy whatever celebration? And they might say it back to you. Okay. So what?
I have a good day.
Yeah. A perfect example of this would be when I was first bartending, 2006, right? So still very deep into the Catholic faith. And this is when the movement of companies started saying,
just say happy holidays.
You have to say happy holidays. You're no longer allowed to say Merry Christmas. I looked at my general manager. I said, "Yeah, no, that's not happening." He gave me a look like I, had something growing out of my forehead, and also didn't think I would not do it. He didn't know me very well at that point yet. Don't tell me what I can't do, especially if it's opposed to what I want to do, because then that just makes me want to do what I want to do more.
It's called being ornery.
And in my hometown, that town is exceptionally Christian.
Yeah,
Right.
like nobody's gonna get mad that you said Merry
Very few people are
Christmas.
going to get mad, right? So I had this gentleman at the bar. He was getting up to leave, and I wished him a Merry Christmas. And he looks at me and goes, "Well, I'm Jewish." I go, "Oh, well, then Happy Hanukkah." He goes, "Hey, you too. Happy Hanukkah." I go, "Actually, I'm Catholic." He goes, "Well, then Merry Christmas." And that's exactly how it needs to be handled, people.
Like,
Exactly right, like that. Just because it's not your celebration doesn't mean that it is trying to harm you.
most of the time when people are giving a casual greeting or farewell, especially in a retail situation, they literally are just like, okay, have a good day. Like,
Yeah.
and then people will be like, you said happy holidays, not Merry Christmas. Like, I don't fucking care, man. Like, I get paid $8.25 an hour to be here. Like, bye.
Absolutely no. As Adam says when he leaves for the day, via condildos.
Via condildos.
Which is becoming one of my favorite exits ever.
Right. So, like, everybody get your panties out of a wad for like 5 minutes. And this goes for all sides. Like, Christian, pagan, atheist, what the fuck ever. I don't care. I don't care.
Well, you know, it's everybody just.
At the end of the day, you wish somebody to have a good weekend or a good day.
Yeah.
Like,
We're becoming a society of
which
butt
is
perfect.
manifesting a good day for them. Like, period.
And for yourself.
And for yourself.
The
Like,
more positivity you throw out there into the world, the more it's going to come back, and the less shit that we're going to have to deal with.
and you touched
in
on
the
it in your
universe.
newsletter this week.
The shop has a monthly newsletter, and this one was very exposing for me because I went in a little deep. I went through and did expose myself a little bit, and it was all in the talking of what we need to project good things even when we're on the struggle bus. So on that note, guys, we're going to start closing this out. This is one of the more controversial topics we'll ever cover in this. So if you're able to make it through this and not hate us, thank you so much. You don't have to do this again. We'll obviously always kind of throw something in there that is, might be a button topic, but it's okay. It's okay. We'll all get through it together. If we did piss you off hardcore on this, please do me a favor. Come back and let us redeem ourselves, because again, we're not going to get this controversial ever again, if not maybe for a long time.
Yeah,
Right.
and send us an email, text, whatever, and fight us on it. Let's fight.
Not a text. Don't I'm not giving you my number. We're not going to text you.
Well,
But
I mean,
you can
like,
direct message us on our
that's
Facebook and
yeah.
Instagram, which is The.Conclave.Podcast. Same thing if you want to email us, just tack on @gmail.com to the end of that. Please do. I would love to hear from you. If you think we are completely wrong for this, shoot me a reason why, especially if you have historical notes for it. If you have actual fact-based stuff to it. I want to learn more. We're here to help teach. We're also here to learn, because there's no way anybody knows everything, and that's always a good thing. Learning is always a damn good thing,
Yep.
right? So bring those controversial comments to me. I love it. I also love a good heated discussion. So let's do it.
Yeah. And when I say fight, it's like we're gonna want to delve into it, and that's why I say fight. Like, let's fight. Like, let's get into it. Let's talk about it.
And let's get this in as early as possible, because episode 13 is going to be that roundtable discussion with multiple practitioners. So you get to hear other people's views on it, because our friends don't share this same opinion.
Nope.
We have friends that we get into heated discussions with on this because they disagree. And it's awesome. I love that. I guess I'm just a little weird though. Maybe I shouldn't like
Fighting so much.
arguing with our friends, but that's
So there's a reason I punched him a lot during the first couple
listen,
years of our
I need-
relationship. I had to
I
train
need
him.
therapy. So do us a favor, get in touch with us in those ways. You can also just put comments down on wherever you're watching or listening to this episode. Definitely come back next week. Again, we're going to be doing the graveyard etiquette, entitled Quietest Neighbors Ever.
We taught a whole class on this. It was super fun.
It was a 2-part class. We did 1 week where we taught we did like classroom work, and the second week we actually went to a local cemetery on like a practical application type thing. So this is a really great one. It's a lot of fun. So please definitely come back for it, even if we pissed you off to the point where you never want to see our faces again.
Then just listen.
Then just listen.
You don't have to watch
Give us one last chance to suck you back in, and we'll be good. I promise. In the meantime, if you did enjoy this, or you have enjoyed the other ones, please like, share, subscribe, follow,
all the
comment,
buttons.
all those good hot button topics. And those that are listening, if you're listening but you would rather watch, Spotify and YouTube have us in video form. And that's it. Another episode down, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Have yourself a very wonderful day. If it applies to you, happy Easter. If not, happy Sunday.
Adios and via con dildos.
Until next time.